On that note, we're going to turn to our free and equal story tonight. Google is now using smartphone data to show which areas of the country are following social distancing guidelines and which are not. I think we all know that tech giants like Google collect our data, for better or worse. We don't really have a choice if we use their products. But now, tech companies like Google are just giving away our location data to the government, which is an astounding violation of our privacy. So what if you want to opt out of Google sharing your data with the government? Well, the answer is simple. You can't. Advocates of this say that technically they aren't sharing, or technically they're only sharing your metadata, not your personal information. But forgive me if after the FISA abuse and unmasking, if I don't trust the government collecting any form of my data. And Americans should not sit idly by while the government attacks our individual rights and our civil liberties using a pandemic as an excuse to justify their gross overreach. With me now, Policy Director at the Conservative Partnership Institute, Rachel Bovard. Rachel, good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Rachel, the thing that gets me about this Google data collection is not that Google collects it. We know that they do. We can see the ads that are always tailored to our searches and even our voices and stuff like that. It's the fact that they're giving it to the government, and there's no way that we can say, no, thank you, don't share that.
That's absolutely right. And what Google will say is, well, we're only sharing the data of people who've opted in by leaving their location tracker on. But I would tell you that Google admitted in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee that they still track your location even when you've turned it off. And so Google is following you everywhere, and you have no ability to opt out. Even the opt-out button is itself a lie. And I think what's really concerning about this is that you're seeing a private company share user data with the government to achieve the same end. It's private company government coercion and collusion, and something that I think we need to be careful about when we're looking at pandemic power grabs. This is Exhibit A.
Right. And when you talk about this opt-out button, when you talk about location services, you're talking about just Google Maps. People use as their GPS in their car. There are many everyday apps on your phone that don't seem to have anything to do with location that require you to turn on location services if you want to use their apps. It's unrealistic to think that you can use a smartphone or that you can use Google or that you can do anything really with technology without enabling location services, which gives Google the right to collect your data and give it, I guess, to the government.
Yeah, that's right. People don't have a very good idea of just how widespread Google Maps are, but they are on over 5 million active apps and websites. So chances are, even if you don't think you're using Google Maps, you are, and Google is collecting that data. So what we don't have here is meaningful consent, and we don't have meaningful opt-out. And that's a blatant violation of privacy. And not only that, but Facebook has now followed Google's lead and is sharing location data on its users as well. So you think you're getting away from Google, Facebook's tracking you too.
Right. And then so that's the first part, Google and Facebook. The second part is, what's the purpose of this? So does the government just want to know this just because they're interested in the data, or are they going to use this information at some point to try to enforce social distancing or, threaten and threaten private citizens if they're not following this, or threaten entire communities if the data shows that the community in general isn't following these guidelines? What's the purpose of the government having this data?
Well, that's what's unclear, and I think that's what's very concerning. You've already seen states issue arrest warrants for people violating their stay-at-home orders. Just sitting in the park by themselves or driving in a car alone has gotten people arrested. So you don't know the ends that the government's going to use with this data, and Google hasn't said it either. They've simply said, well, we're making aggregate data sets available. It's not your personal data. But again, we have to take them at their word, and their word isn't always suitable. As we've talked about before, they said they're not tracking you when in fact they are. They've lied before. I'm not confident that they won't do it again.
No, I'm not either. I mean, combine that with the government. Yeah, I don't feel a lot of trust there. So I made a list of some of the most ridiculous enforcements of social distancing that we've seen around the country, just to give people an idea of what the government might do with this data. So in Pennsylvania, the state police gave a citation to a woman for going for a drive amid the stay-at-home order. Going for a drive. There wasn't a lot of people in her car. She wasn't violating any social distancing, wasn't in a crowd. She just was going for a drive, but they gave her a citation for that. In Los Angeles, police arrested a paddleboarder in the ocean. This individual was violating the beaches closed order, yes. However, this person was not violating the spirit of the rule, which is don't get close to people. You can see the picture on the screen. The mayor of Los Angeles wants individual citizens to rat out their neighbors. The mayor of Los Angeles wants people to be snitches. In Kentucky, a judge orders residents who refuse to quarantine to wear ankle monitors like they are felons. In California, police are citing people in their cars for sitting and watching a sunset. Again, in their cars. In Port Isabel, Texas, residents are not allowed now to drive anywhere with more than 2 people in their car. And in Kansas City, police broke up a driving parade of elementary school teachers and administrators. Rachel, this stuff is nuts. It's hard to believe that it's true.
Well, this is why we inherently distrust government. It's why conservatives support limited government, because when you give the government this kind of power, they're going to take it to the extreme. And this is what we're seeing. And what's concerning is that private companies are now jumping on the bandwagon and taking our data and giving them even more utility and resources to do this, which is of concern.
Yep, because we can see how the government is enforcing this. We don't want to give them more data. Rachel, thank you for being on top of the story. I appreciate it.